Hi, welcome to Chad Silversmithing. Before we get too far into the video, if you wouldn't mind hitting the like button, uh, I'd appreciate that. It helps with the algorithm. I'd also love it if you'd leave a comment. Ideas for videos, constructive criticism, how you do things, just general questions. Those are all welcome. So today I'm going to do a basic box ring. I've never done one as a specific video. I think I've done a couple of projects that incorporated one, but I didn't really talk about it as just a form. And there's a lot of different ways to do this. I'm going to show you a pretty simple way, I think, and we'll see how it comes out. But I think it should be a good generic type of ring that you can modify in multiple different ways to create quite a bit of variety. So before we get started, I wanted to thank some groups of people. My patrons over on Patreon are my core group of supporters. I have two new people who just signed up. There's Joanna V and Anne. Thank you for your support. I really appreciate it, as do I appreciate the support from all of the other wonderful members of my Patreon. They've created this really nice community, and I appreciate that so much. So thank you for that, and thank you for your support. The other group is my YouTube subscribers, and we just passed 15,600 if I remember correctly, and that is awesome and amazing, and I don't know how to thank you for that. I also want to let you know just how meaningful it is to me when you leave such nice comments. It really, doing this channel is much more work than I expected, and knowing that I'm helping some people really makes it worth my while, so thank you for that. I also do appreciate the contributions like the super thanks and the buy me a coffees. That really helps with the cost of materials and such. So thank you for that. And let's get started on this project. This is one of my design idea books you can get on my merch store if you're interested. The more recent ones, I have some conversion charts on the backs of some of them. This one's fractions of an inch to decimals to millimeters, and I use this one a lot because I've been trying to do things in millimeters a lot more. But it allows me to have a space to keep track of the things I come up with, sketch them out. And here's what I wanted to make today. So a signet ring is usually kind of an upright ring like that, where it goes up and has kind of a flat spot on top, where in the past sometimes they would mount a stone that had I think it's called an intaglio or something like that, where they carve in a design and you can use it to stamp into wax. Also, sometimes they're just metal with initials engraved into them, or some other design engraved into the metal itself. But typically they have kind of a box type top on them, and so we'll just make a basic box type. I think I found a little flat carnelian. I know I've used carnelian a lot lately, but this is the only one I could find that had kind of a shape that I wanted for this type of thing. And so I'm going to make the top of it kind of about that size and shape. And the entire thing is going to be pretty much 18 gauge, and the bezel I'm going to use for this is going to be 3/16 inch fine silver bezel strip, which is 4.76 millimeters, I believe. And I'm going to use 26 gauge, which, I think it's 0.41 millimeters if I remember right. 18 gauge is 1.02 millimeters for the body of the ring here. So what's not showing here is we'll be making kind of a band that comes to a point at the top out of 18, and I'm going to do it rectangular like this. And I took a piece of wire and I measured around the length of this, and I added a little bit extra, like an extra 5 millimeters or so, in order to have a little bit of room to, make a mistake. If you hear groans in the background, it's my dog. She's pouting because she's ready for dinner. So it measured out to about 70 millimeters, so I cut it about 75, or I'm going to cut it about 75. I wanted to make sure to leave enough room to put some bezel on the top there. I wanted the stone to take up most of the top, and I may round the corners just a little bit. So, and let's see. The other thing is, as you can see, it's a rectangle. But I'm going to do it that way, and then once it's in the general shape like that, where it's got a flat top and goes around in kind of that peaked circle, then I'm going to taper it down like this way, so it gets narrower towards the bottom. And what I'm going to have to do is, on this piece here, in order to put a side that goes across here like this, so it has kind of a hollow form up there almost, we're going to have to file this in a little bit like that, in order so it's flush with the rest of this thing when it goes down. But then we'll just carve away the curve here, if that makes sense. I don't know if I explained that well, but I will show you. So let's make a bezel for this first, and I use really tall bezel, but I'm going to cut it down a lot shorter when I've got it made. A couple of things about my channel: if you've never been here, I use hard silver sheet solder, which looks like this generally. I got liquid flux that I dribble on. Sometimes I spray it on. I use a Silversmith model. It's an acetylene air torch, and it's a great torch. I think it's just the perfect torch for silversmithing, personally. So I'm going to put the edge of the bezel on the long side of this rounded oval, rounded square, I guess I should say, rounded rectangle. That's the name of the shape I'm dealing with here. My hands are in a little rough shape right now. I apologize for that. Might have to put on one of those little rubber finger protector things. I generally make these angular when I solder them. Makes it easier for me to put a piece of solder on there, get it to stay where I want it to stay. Well, size-wise, I think I did pretty well on that one. Get out of there. Alright, I think I can set those to the side for the moment. Find some 18 gauge sheet. So for the top, even though it's a rectangle, it needs to be at least 13 this way. And it comes out to be about 10 this way, but I'm going to make it a little bit wider just for the sake of being careful, and then we'll cut it down as we need. So let's cut ourselves maybe a 13 by 13 piece, and we'll see how that looks. I should be able to get it from there. Flatten that out a little bit better. So let's go. Oops. That. Yeah, let's see how that bezel sits on there. It's pretty close on that edge. I might make it a little bit wider in this dimension, just to be safe. Give us just a little bit more room to work with. You can use your saw if you prefer to do it that way. There's that piece. Gonna need a 75mm long piece. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 75, right about there. So if this is going to be our edge here, we'll go in 13 on that edge. Thereabouts. Sometimes people ask me about these shears. These are Fisker's craft shears. And 18 gauge is about as thick as they'll cut. And it damages them over time. So I just found it makes it easier to do shears like that sometimes rather than sawing everything. And you can get quite a bit of use out of those before they finally break. Certainly make enough pieces of jewelry to pay for a new pair. That doesn't have to be perfect, I don't think, because we're going to be filing a lot of it off anyway. So now let's wrap it around the mandrel. So where's that little piece? Let's flatten this guy out too. So we're going to be doing that, but we need to figure out where that's going to happen. So that's a pretty good height like that. I think about that right there. So let's measure down from that and measure the same distance down from this end. We should get pretty close. Got about 6 millimeters. Alright, well I did a little bit of shaping, and I think I got this pretty close to the size and everything. So I want this to end up being right on top of that. So trying to keep everything as symmetrical as I can. I think once I have it, that's pretty close. Once I have it all exactly where I want it to be, I'm going to file this down so where it meets the bottom of the sheet here, it's going to lay flush, and we can just solder them together like that. And then after that, we're going to do some tapering this in this direction so it goes downwards towards the center. So let's get this soldered together after I file this, of course. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time filing across here. I think that's about right. So probably the easiest way to solder this on would be to just lay that down like that. Make sure this is positioned nicely. Well, we'll give that a try and see how it works. We're pretty close. I'm going to position a little bit of solder in here. There's more mass in the band, but there's also harder to get that bottom piece hot. So you need to get them all to reach 1450 at about the same time, ideally. So I think I'm going to go ahead and file these so that they're smooth with the angle. I'm just going to go like that originally, but it's so close to the edge there, I think I'm going to run it this way, because I left myself enough room to do that. I think that looked pretty cool. So, change of plans. Slight change of plans. Okay, so now, that's about how wide it is. So that was 13, I think. So if you divide 13 by 3, you get about 4, and a little more, 4 1/3. That's just an arbitrary decision on my part, but if we go, let's see how it looks if we go that far in. About thirds. Do I want the band to be quite that narrow? I don't know. Maybe not. I think a little less than that. So I think my next step I need to saw from here down to there. If it works better for you, you can take a black marker or a blue marker and color that and let it dry, and then scratch your line through it if it makes it easier for you to see it. Sometimes I do that. One thing though is the lubrication stuff that I use for my saw immediately dissolves or makes the permanent marker smudge and start to move around, so sometimes it's easier just to have a regular scratch in here. Okay, so I'm going to go slice it like that and like that, and I'll be right back. Okay, so like I said, I just took a zero on my saw, a zero blade, and just kind of tried to cut it down most of the way. And then I'm going to use my file to kind of smooth that out so it's a nice straight edge. So I think it'd be nice if this went down to about right about there. And that is about 7 millimeters down. I think I'm going to use my file like this to kind of get a start. Well, that's not straight. So 18 gauge is about 1 millimeter, so I need to file these in about 1 millimeter. And then we'll be able to solder a sheet across there to make the box. So we're going to be soldering that on like that. Let's see how straight that is. Not very. That looks pretty good. Okay, so let's put this side on. I'm just going to try and do it like that. So I think let's sweat a little bit of solder onto this side, and then we'll just flip it over and heat the whole thing until it flows. And we'll do the other side. One variation you could do as well is you could do a band inside of a band, like a round one here, and then this kind of a peaked one like that with a cavity between them. You'd have to drill a hole on the inside one or underneath, where if you're going to put a stone on top or something, so that you didn't have a sealed cavity when you soldered the sides on. But then you'd have a completely round interior instead of a hollowed interior like this one's going to have. I do something called pick soldering. If you've never seen it before, it's a really useful skill. I'll put a link up there for you for a video. And it allows you to place solder wherever you want it pretty easily. From my experience, it kind of amped up my game a little bit. Looks about right. Mostly I'm going to heat the band. The piece on top is up above, so the torch is above and the heat is rising, so and the other part has way more mass. So most of the heat's going to go into that bottom piece. Let's cool it off and see how it came out. So I'm going to trim off the excess here where I can, and I'll clean it up with a file eventually. In the meantime, it'll be pretty much parallel to that other one. No, it's not perfect, but that's okay. Okay, so now we got to work on the other side. Probably not going to make you watch me do that part, but I'll do the same thing I just did, and then we'll trim it down. Alright, as you can see, I filed everything down, kind of got it into its box shape. Now we got to get this back into a round shape, and this is the template that I used for about a size 10 there. So I'm just going to hold that up there and scratch that continuation of that circle in there with a T-pin or my pick or something. Let me see if I can find a T-pin. Now I just need to cut those out of there. Probably will use my saw, and then I'll just clean it up with my rotary tool with an abrasive white wheel. Kind of cleaned up the circle there so it's more round. I don't think it's perfect, but it's definitely pretty symmetrical, so I think that's good. Now, decide how we're going to put this on here. I like it that way, and it's getting a little bit close on that direction, I think. So I think I'm going to put it this way. So, let's see. Kind of help to get things lined up a little bit if we do a corner to corner scratch. Just got to do our best to get that kind of Saturn on there. And I think let's do it on top of the magnesia block on the third hand here, maybe. Let's position a few pieces of solder inside of there. Then we should be able to heat the whole thing and get it to stick down. In theory. Basically though, minus the bezel I'm putting on here, you have your kind of simple signet ring sort of style. Now you can do them with round tops or with, you know, different shapes, but I just thought we'd do kind of a basic one. But you could, instead of doing a bezel up here, you could have it, you know, engraved with some initials or some kind of message for your favorite person. Looks like we have a seam all the way around. That looks reasonably straight until it cools off, and then I'll realize it's not straight. Alright, but I think I got it pretty good, so I'm going to pickle it, and then when I come back it'll be polished and we can quick set the stone. So I'll be back. Okay, so I have it all polished up pretty much. I think it came out pretty nice. And I put a little tag board in there, and then I polished up a piece of sterling and cut it just about the same size as the stone and put it on top of the tag board to give it a little bit of light reflectivity. Now I do this a little different than some people. I polish the outside edges of my chain nose pliers here, and I use that as a bezel pusher. So you think you have it secure in there, then you can go ahead and do the last step, which is called burnishing. Now for that I use the rounded outer part of the chain nose pliers. And I'm just going to rub really with quite a bit of pressure right on that top edge. That smooths it out and really snugs it up against the stone. This is one of those parts where beginners have trouble because they haven't quite gotten the hang of the burnishing process, and so the tops of their bezels have a tendency to look a little rough, and that's a normal thing. You just need to take a little more time and really use some elbow grease to get it down there. and figure out how to hold it so you get the best leverage and things. A lot of people hold these in some other kind of device, like a little wooden ring holder. I have one around here somewhere. I'm just used to doing it in my hands, but that's not the only way to do it. There's lots of tools to help you out. But I think for this one, I'm pretty much done. I'll do a little bit of cleanup at the top of this bezel with my Dremel and a white silicone, or not a white one, or a blue one, which I think is labeled as fine. So it leaves a pretty shiny finish. And then we'll get some better pictures and put them at the end. I think that came out nice. Again, lots of variations. You could put decorations. I thought about doing some texture on the sides here. I opted out of that at the last minute here because it was looking pretty nice. So yeah, that's a fabricated box ring, or a fabricated signet ring. I lost the word there for a minute. So yeah, not too hard to do. Attractive ring. I like it. Okay, well, that was the Signet ring project. I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, make sure to hit the like button before you leave. And take a moment, if you would, and go and visit my main channel page. I have over 400 videos now, so there's tons of content of all different levels and many different projects you can pick from. So lots of things to peruse. I'd love it if you'd do that, and I'd love it if you'd subscribe to my channel. So I appreciate that in advance. The other thing is, check out the video description down below. There's some important links down there if you're interested in getting my ebook, which is a guide to 2023's videos. Those are available there. There's a link to my merch store if you want to get one of those nice design idea books. And finally, there's a link to my Patreon, which is a really great community. You might want to check out what that's like over there. So thanks for coming. Take care. Happy silversmithing.